President Trump is on his way to a Merry Christmas rally in Michigan as the unmerry debate over impeachment continues on the House floor. But will the president get a warm reception on this visit to a state that he very narrowly won in 2016? According to recent data, the initial boom in manufacturing and farming has faded a bit in key Midwestern swing states, with Michigan seeing only a 1.8% job growth under Trump. Many of these states rely on farming and manufacturing. Of course, those are two areas that have been hit hard by the president's trade policies. So, will the president unroll a new growth plan tonight, maybe 2.0 on tax cuts, to keep the Midwestern states that were key to his 2016 victory? Let's ask White House Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow in a Fox Business exclusive. Larry, great to see you. Tonight, let's talk about Michigan, if you can, in the Midwest. As I mentioned, they have not been keeping up the pace, as you will, with the rest of the country in terms of job growth. They have been growing, but not as much. I'm wondering if it's time for tax cuts 2.0. Will we hear that tonight from the president?
Well, if he mentions tax cuts 2.0, and I'd love him to do it, he will be talking about something that's under process and wouldn't be published until we're well into the campaign later next year. Look, Michigan is doing just fine. They've suffered a GM strike. Now that's over. You saw yesterday the industrial production number up 1.1%. And in particular, business equipment, CapEx, which is what our corporate tax cut was aimed at, had a huge monthly increase of, 1.7, 1.8. So we're going to see a reawakening of production and CapEx. But look, the big story, 3.5% unemployment. The job numbers come out month after month. We are in a middle-class boom. Wage earners, people on the production line, are making faster wage increases than their managers. Average income nationwide is up $5,000 after tax. The prior two administrations, it was flat. You're seeing a terrific economy, which, by the way, I saw Atlanta Fed GDP now. Yeah. They're already up to 2.3% in the fourth quarter. They're not over yet. Next year is going to be a terrific year, absolutely terrific year. And the people in Michigan know a winner when they see one. You watch tonight how those people support President Trump, especially with some of the nonsense going on here in Washington, D.C.
Larry, Steve Forbes here. Good to see you again, and see you in fine form, citing these irrefutable facts about the boom. And now that the trade situation hopefully is getting resolved and that uncertainty out of the way, what do you think is going to happen on health care? That's what the Democrats think is the vulnerable flank of the Republicans, that people still fear that they're going to be thrown out on the sidewalk. What are you going to be doing on that to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, I can tell you one thing. President Trump has not and will not talk about removing 180 million people from their private insurance plans, okay? He will not talk about that. And by the by, some of the most important people depending on these generous corporate, these are not government, these are corporate plans, are union workers, rank and file union workers who are going to stay with Mr. Trump. On other matters, we will continue to have a federal guarantee for those with pre-existing conditions. Let me repeat that. A federal guarantee for those with pre-existing conditions. And the rest of it, as we have put together, 3-year duration, that is a matter of choice. You can choose any policy you want. We've already gotten rid of the individual mandate. We've already put through a transparency policy, both with respect to prices and costs, any unexpected costs, and also quality and performance. I could go on and on. We'll have a very strong personal, individual choice health care plan. We will protect those with the federal backing for pre-existing conditions, and we will let you keep your excellent private insurance plan, unlike some prior administrations that I will not name. We will let you keep them.
Hi, Larry. This is Steve Moore, not Steve Forbes. Great to have you on the show. As you know, Steve Forbes and I got a chance to chat with the president yesterday, and one of the, he's even more upbeat than you are, Larry, about how things are going in this country and the economy. I wanted to ask you a question that I asked the president about the China deal, which I think is a great success, but I'm a little worried about whether China will abide by the terms of this. How do we enforce this great new trade deal?
Well, look, we will see whether they abide by it or not. I mean, if the thing works, we're going to double our exports to China. Double our exports.
Wow.
That includes, of course, farming, but it also includes energy and manufacturing. And by the by, a very important announcement today because of ethanol. China is now going to purchase U.S. ethanol exports directly, not transshipped through Hong Kong, but it's going to purchase it directly. The reason I say that is we're coming out with a very important ethanol biodiesel plan tomorrow for our patriotic farm friends in the Midwest, including the state of Iowa. Now, the rest of this, I'm happy to answer any question you want, but here's the bottom line. If China does not abide, and we have a lengthy process crafted by the great Bob Lighthizer, our trade ambassador, if they do not abide by the rules and the commitments, then there will be a snapback on tariffs, among other things. We have made the adjustments on tariffs. There's no December charge. The September charge has been cut in half. There's $250 billion left at 25%. If they do not abide by that, then they will have to face tariffs. And look, President Trump has shown time and time again that he is a tough negotiator. He is a tough bargainer. He wants to stop the unfair and illegal China trading practices, and he will exercise all of the arrows in his quiver. So let me make that very clear.
Larry, it's Robert Wolf. As always, it's been the same. Steve and Steve give you two softballs, so I figure I'd come in with something a little different, but always good to see you.
We like the truth.
Exactly.
my favorite Democrat. Ask me how the millennials are going to vote. That's socialism.
So, listen,
my favorite Democrat. Let's talk socialism, Bob Wolf.
You and I have been supportive of USMCA right from the beginning.
Yes.
This past weekend, Senator Toomey of Pennsylvania hit it really hard, will not be supporting it. I was a bit surprised by it. He really kind of trashed it. What's your response to what he was saying about USMCA with respect to the impact of Pennsylvania, the impact of industrial America? He for the most part took the opposite side of what you and I have been saying.
Well, look, Pat Toomey is a friend of mine. He doesn't think it's a perfect plan, and of course, that's up to him. Let me just say a couple of points, though. I like the domestic content increase to 75%. I don't see why, after we lost, 6 million manufacturing jobs, I don't see why we shouldn't protect American workers. No problem with that. And I don't know, Pat Toomey may disagree, and that's his right. He's a smart fella. Here's some stuff, though, that he's not talking about that I want to raise, which I think is very important. What's in here, brand new? We've never had, for example, in the new economy, IP protection. We've never had that before, intellectual protection. We've never had the kind of digital services expansion in a deal like this. We've never had a currency stability in a deal like this. These are things that are going to cause tremendous new investment into the United States. And I don't think Senator Toomey has taken that into account. The estimates, the midpoint of the estimates from the International Trade Commission, Bob, the midpoint, roughly, per year, 350,000 new jobs and 3/4 of an additional percentage point of GDP. Those are big numbers.
Okay.
This is a pro-growth deal. So my friend Senator Toomey, a very smart guy, I wish he'd take another look at it.
We got a hard break. You know what that means? It also means that Liz Peek gets the first question next time because unfortunately she was cut out of this one. Thank you, Larry. Great to see you. Keep up the good work. Thanks for being here.